Wicked. Is this the part where we pretend like we haven't been kicking it for the last 2 hours and like, hey, Lachy.
Oh, hi. What was your name?
What are you doing in my bedroom? How'd you get here?
It's not what you said last time, huh?
Fucking. All right, call me out then. I'll see how it is. Nah, I guess we just get straight into it, but
Yeah.
we should probably, have a bit of social lubrication, just basic conversation.
Yeah.
Skirt. Yeah. So I guess like I did kind of ask you already, we were going to have a bit of a chat about your history
Yep.
and why you are as weird and eccentric as you are.
Yep.
Yep.
You're cheaper than a psychiatrist, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, at the moment. Yeah, I fucking... Obviously, you started rapping when you were, what, like 12?
Pretty much, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
What were you doing before that?
I don't know, going to school, playing the guitar, just doing kid shit.
Okay, so there was always like something musical though.
Pretty much, yeah, I guess so. I started playing the guitar when I was like 10. Yeah, probably around like 9 or 10. And then I kept doing that till I was probably like 12 or 13. And then I found hip-hop and I just pretty much dispensed with the guitar entirely. It was like hip-hop for life only.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
What got you into playing the guitar? That's fuck off.
Probably just like dad was always listening to like grunge and rock and roll sort of stuff and just heaps of music, which I was always listening to by proxy, I suppose, but always really liked. Then, yeah, I was thought, this is pretty dope. Maybe I should play it as well, Yeah. I don't know. Just thought it seemed like a fun thing to do. Yeah, I got pretty obsessed with it and pretty into it.
Oh, that wouldn't be like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I guess it would be probably easy to think growing up with like two loving parents that have their shit somewhat together would make life easy and you would have no challenges because of that. But that seems unrealistic to my brain. So what challenges did that itself bring up in your life?
I don't know if like having like loving and accepting parents was a challenge, really. Like, I don't think that aspect of it was a challenge. I don't know. I suppose there was just like normal challenges though that, well, I don't know. Things that feel like challenges at the time, but really in hindsight, it's just like normal parts of growing up.
Like what?
Just like everything, just like, so
Just exists.
just existing, just, social dynamics of school, just like, I don't know, I would always stress out about hella weird shit. Like I was always very obsessed with music and potentially I'm like a little inclined to get like obsessive and like stress out about things. And if there's nothing really to stress about, I'll just make up some weird shit. Like I would download all this music and like all these discographies and then I'd like sort out all the metadata and get all the album artwork and like make it all perfect and pristine and then I'd like load it all onto my iPod or whatever and I'd sit there and be like, fuck, there's so much, how am I ever going to listen to it? This is a big problem. It was very stressful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
You just decided to make your own problems.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'd make my own problems.
Where this obsessive, just the way you approach things, in the sense you're very meticulous about things. When did that start? Have you always been like that, like since you were a fucking little tack, or was there something that happened? Or
I don't know, man. I guess so. I guess it's like a bit of like an obsessive part of my personality that I guess gets directed towards the things that I'm interested in, and then the things that I'm not so interested in, I don't really pay any attention to or put any effort into, really, I suppose. Yeah. It's only really the things that I'm interested in that I know about. Like I have a lot of massive blank spots as far as knowledge about everything else goes, I would say.
Yeah. I have seen you try and catch a bus, so I would believe that.
Yeah, especially directions and geography. I don't know where shit is anywhere. Get lost in Hobart, get lost in Launceston.
Get lost in a one-way street.
Yeah.
So do you think that the way that you really nestle down into things that you are familiar with or that you enjoy, does that help to avoid the fact that the rest of life is all a bit like confusing?
Yeah, I suppose so. Like I definitely feel like when life's quite stressful or there's a lot of shit to think about or that needs attention or that is occupying my mind, if I just like sit down with a mix and like mix the song. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, brother.
Yeah. No, but like sit down to mix a track or something, then it's like so much more relaxing. I'm like, oh, now all I have to do is this. I know how to do this, and this is very zen. You know, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that in a familiar environment, you are ace, and that is comfortable. So you would rather be there than approach like something that's uncomfortable.
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think that like, I don't know, doing anything and like progressing your life and your career, and it really necessitates being in a lot of uncomfortable situations and getting out of your comfort zone, which is definitely, I don't know, something that I've had to do and have to contend with a bit.
Do you enjoy doing that, or is it something that you find very, very painful to go through?
I guess it is. It's uncomfortable for sure. To like get out of your comfort zone is uncomfortable. Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's an important thing to do, and I kind of like force myself to do it a bit. Yeah, you do as well, Mark.
I find it. I'm quite comfortable in the outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah,
I find the comfort and familiar
comfort in the chaos
fucking terrifying.
Yeah,
it just numbs me out. And then
I know. Yeah, I know what you mean. Because it's like the fear of being stagnant and being like content and comfortable and going nowhere. And yeah, that's kind of more of a scary thing than pushing out of your comfort zone and experiencing whatever like scary things or, you know, elements of discomfort are there. I think that's the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also find the comfort zone is far more addictive, which I think is why I do have some sense of fear towards it, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I could just lay in this bed and be depressed and be happy with that.
Yeah.
In some like weird, twisted sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think like with all kind of like, you know, getting out of your comfort zone and pushing towards other things, there's always like little vices or little pockets of comfortability that you still retain and that you still kind of like find refuge and solace in, you know? Whether it's like, you know, drinking or like being alone with your music or like weed or like anything, you know what I mean? Like there's little things that kind of are like little comfortable, familiar bits of solace.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think a lot of people just get lost in that and don't do the out of comfort zone thing and then just end up stoners or alcoholics or fucking
true.
like whatever it is, you know?
Yeah.
Like clinically depressed because they're just like addicted to self-wello or like whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that the approach to the discomfort will certainly keep you away from those vices, whilst those vices might make you somewhat comfortable when you're in it.
It's a very important thing, I think, to like learn how to deal with and enjoy and like contend with the discomfort and the chaos and all that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's part of being an adult maybe. Because I know when I was a kid, I was like, as much as I did put myself in very uncomfortable situations, I didn't necessarily want to pursue that. It was just, I guess, a necessity.
Yeah.
Because the older I get, the more I'm like, no, I actually want to be in that spot where I don't have a fucking clue what's going on. Because it's those little moments of like, I get this now. Or the little bits of progress that you make through that actually give the fucking dopamine to the brain.
Yeah.
That, fades, I guess, once the wild childhood imagination goes out the window a little bit.
That's the case if you have any kind of like interest or desire in bettering yourself. Some people don't, you know, and want to just stay in the comfort zone and, you know, but like, yeah, if you want to make something better out of yourself, I suppose you do end up realizing that you need to get out of your comfort zone and go through some discomfort. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, you take life very seriously. And I know you've told me before that you've always taken life seriously. And that's even something I think your friends used to give you shit for back in school, yeah?
Yeah, I suppose so. I remember one of my friends telling me like that I take myself very seriously. Like it was like a big criticism. And at the time I was like, oh, what? No, I don't. And then I was like, now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, is that like actually that bad of a thing? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I, have somewhat of a light demeanor and like enjoy having fun. But I'm like, still like consider my life somewhat of a serious thing that I need to like have some kind of a handle on. You know what I mean? But I mean, I don't think that means you can't have fun and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I would never think that someone taking themselves or I guess what you do is you take what you're doing very seriously, but you don't necessarily take yourself very seriously.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's what it seems like from the outside anyway. Like you're like, I don't know, you're pretty free and easy going, but if you're approaching a a product or you're trying to complete a task, it's like the shit that you do is pretty meticulous.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah, I think I'm very, I really care about what I'm doing. I think it's probably, more of a healthy outlook to not get too wrapped up in the ego of that. And like, I guess that's how you could consider taking yourself seriously, to be like, oh, I'm a fucking big deal here, mate. Look at all this shit I'm doing on my big rig. You know what I mean? Like more so focused on the actual shit you're doing rather than looking at it as a way to further your own ego or like,
In saying that, just from some of the songs of yours that I've heard and some of your lyrics, it sounds like you're not, you're not outside of those feelings of like jealousy and of the ego and all those things. But you do keep, you don't, let them come off your tongue. But it sounds like they do function inside of your mind quite a lot.
Yeah. I guess no one's really impervious to like feelings of insecurity and jealousy and all that thing. I think a lot of like outward like assertions of ego do come from insecurity a lot of the time. Like you feel like, well, if you felt like, you're who you are as a person and like your status and, who you are and what you do is like so self-evident that you don't need to assert it all the time, then you wouldn't. But if you feel like, you're a bit insecure about yourself, then I think it's going to end up in you asserting your ego a lot more.
I think you're right. Yeah, because of like I think the nature of knowing, like I think to know something it just needs to be internally verifiable. And if you know something, you don't actually need to verify it externally because at least as much as a human being can quote unquote know something. And I think those two things might be kind of tied. At least in my own retarded brain,
I think it's like. Yeah, it's a tricky thing because on some level, if you do feel like you're 100% secure in yourself and where you are and what you can do and what you do and everything like that, I don't know, maybe that would lead to a little bit less motivation. But I don't know, maybe that's not the case. Maybe some people would be perfectly content to, be as productive and creative as they want. But I feel like I'm somewhat motivated by like feelings of like negative feelings like of inadequacy or like feeling like I'm, I guess, missing the boat or missing my opportunity or like there's stuff here that I need to do that I haven't done. And like I'm quite motivated by what I don't have and what I haven't done and what there's still left to achieve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. And that but where does that stem from? Because that's certainly not something that I was to say if it's not something that a lot of people have. Like most people that I meet are just like, they don't even know where the fuck the boat is or the fact it exists, whereas it's something you seem very fixated on moving forward at a rate of knots.
Yeah. I don't know. Nice little boat analogy though, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know, bro. I think it's just like I've got, I guess with music and with the, creative industry and stuff, I feel like I've got a path and I've got like a calling and a purpose, and so it makes it a bit easier to like, I don't know, it gives me something to strive towards. Like I have a passion and I've got something. I guess if I didn't, I'd be a little bit more floundering around, not really knowing what's going on.
Do you think about the if you didn't much?
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes I think it would be easier, like heaps easier, if I didn't have this like this music problem. I could just like, I don't know, like be a tradie or something, and just like, or software engineer or just some other job, and life would be heaps more cruisy, and I'd just like work for someone else. They'd tell me what to do. I'd get my paycheck and it would be so much easier. But then, I don't know, I probably wouldn't like that either,
Well, it comes with its own problems. We all want what we don't have.
Yeah.
Do you think about the grim side of not doing it though?
Yeah.
The dark, where that could end if you do miss the boat, if you do slack off, if you don't hit targets. Does that, how does that sort of imagination look to you when you think about, fuck, my life could end up there?
Yeah. Well, that's it. The side of like doing this kind of stuff on my own for my job is like, if I don't, do enough to at least make money, then I'll get evicted and I'll have no food and it'll be, you know what I mean? Like there's that immediate, like, you know, you better do something or you'll be homeless. That's a definite motivation. Yeah. That's a pretty good motivator, really. But then also the feeling of just being like having unachieved potential is a pretty powerful motivator, I think. Like I think in general, I don't necessarily strive for any particular like numbers or like tangible goals other than feeling like I've achieved my potential. I mean, it does help. It does help in like the short term to set very specific goals. But I think overall my main motivation is just like I want to do what I feel like I can do and like achieve my potential and not leave that on the table and feel like, you know, be a could have been. You know what I mean?
How would one measure their potential?
I don't know.
Like how do you like if that's something you strive for, is that something that at times you feel like you achieve, or is it just this, you know, ever-ending road that with the carrot down the end of it and you never really get there?
I guess it is. Yeah, I guess it's like it's pretty much that you don't know. There's no like objective metric for your potential that you're striving towards. It's you kind of just have to do your best to feel like you're doing as much as you can, I suppose. Yeah.
And that would that come from those moments along the journey where you're like, oh, this is something I've never done before and maybe at one point wasn't sure if I could do, and it's when you achieve those things that you get that little bit of gratification. Yeah,
and I guess too that's like your potential's an ever-evolving thing. Like the more you do and the more like you achieve and the better you get, then the higher the ceiling of your potential is. So it is kind of like a never-ending thing, but I think that's probably a good thing, really.
I think you're right, because if you got there, then fucking what do you do after that?
Yeah.
You know? Oh, I finished the game. Oh, because like, you know, coming from someone that plays video games, once you finish all the things there are to do in the game, walking around the game world, pretty boring.
Yeah, that's the problem. If you have like such objective metrics as your goal, then once you reach them, you would feel a little bit lost, I suppose. What do you think? Are you motivated by specific goals, do you think?
At times, man, but fuck, they shift a lot. I think something that I've found that does a good job to keep me motivated is just working hard.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain gratification that I get and pride that I get in myself when I work really hard, and it also distracts me from all of the just fucked up shit that floods my brain, you know? And if I'm like really applying myself 100% and like teetering on burnout all the time, and I don't have to focus and I don't have to be a victim to my own fucking nonsense, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I feel that, yeah. It's a lot easier to be like comfortable and content when you feel like you're on the teetering on burnout, I think. Yeah. But also it's like it is a bit of a dangerous thing that can be toxic as well.
Because if you burn out and you can't do anything.
Yeah. But
you spend fucking 5 weeks on Eric's couch, not even eating food.
Yeah, I feel ya.
Yeah. The music aside and your creative endeavors inside, because I think that's a lot of maybe what people focus on, just you as a human being, what have been your biggest struggles to get through in life?
An interesting one. It's very hard to divorce me as a person from music and what I do, I think. But like, I think just like as a whole, just like growing up and learning how to be an adult and learning how to be a man and like learning how to, you know what I mean? Like what that means and
what does that mean?
Fuck knows, man.
What? Because it's definitely a journey I've been very fascinated on.
Yeah.
Is like working out what the fuck it means to be a man. Because I want to be one, but I think maybe working it out first is a good idea. But have you made any progress on, or have you got any inklings on what it might mean to be a man?
I think last week I grew my first pube, which I think is a really good step in the right direction.
Yeah, well, you're just growing one at a time, just gluing them to your face.
I'm growing, one at a time, harvest it off and glue it up here. No, I don't know, bro. It's a very hard thing to work out and it's an ever evolving mission. And I wonder like if, you know, I'm ever going to get to the point where I feel like I've figured it out and I've done it and I'm a functioning, successful adult and I got my shit together and I'm finally a man. You know what I mean? It's hard to really know.
For sure. I think it being a definitive, again, an objective thing that you get to is probably not accurate. But I think there's probably a field, a realm you would get to where you're like, oh, okay, I feel more like a fully fledged adult than I do a child, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but fucking what constitutes that?
I think a lot of it has to do with with building and like establishing your own personality that's like, and your own values and your own perspective on things that are like separate from when you're a child, like your main influences, like your parents or your guardians or whatever older figures you look up to. I feel like when you're really young, so much of your identity and your values and your personality is a reflection of that. I think really growing up is developing that independently and separating that from, you know, your parents or your caregivers or your influences or the people you look up to, and like learning to really be solid and independent and steadfast in yourself.
Yeah.
And also, being independent and self-sufficient and like providing for yourself and providing for your loved ones. And I feel like, being your own person and having that strong sense of values and strong sense of independence, I think.
Right. What are those values for you? Have you developed them? And if so, what are they?
What are my values? I think I really think personally a very important value for me is honesty. I think that's probably not a very unique value to have, but I think it's something that I think is probably like one of the most important things.
Yeah, I think that's one of those ones that like everyone says that's their value.
Yeah.
But it's actually not super common to meet people that practice the honesty.
Yeah.
You know, most people live life in their facade and take other people's facades as reality, opposed to like what's the real honest truth.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like with honesty, it's like you have to really believe that like being as honest as you possibly can be, even if it results in a very uncomfortable situation or like, you know, discomfort in the short term, long term is going to like necessarily eventuate in a better outcome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's no like advantageous white lies or being dishonest with yourself or like, you know what I mean? That's going to result in a better outcome. But which, I mean, I don't know. That's not to say that, I mean, it's very hard to like be totally honest with yourself, I think. But
interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, just everybody has like, I think everybody's inclined to tell themselves things that they want to hear to make themselves feel better or to make their life easier or, you know what I mean? This or that. It's like, it's a very innate part of the human condition. And it has to be something that you're like it takes a lot of self-awareness to overcome that, I think, you know, and that's quite a tricky thing to do. Like I guess I'm always trying to do that as much as I can, but I don't think I'm like so arrogant to say that I nail it all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. I think you're probably might be the person I know that is one of the best at doing those things.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah. I think, I guess the reason I find that so fascinating is I feel like maybe what you, just from an outside perspective, it seems like you struggle more with being honest about other people and the raw, hard truth of the way other people are than you do yourself.
Potentially, yeah. But I think it's like also like not a matter of knowing, you know, what the honest truth is and expressing that. It's like also figuring out what the honest truth is. You know what I mean? Because there's like so many different variables to consider in any given situation. It's like the more you think about it, the less sure you can be about anything, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's what's the name for that effect?
The Dunning-Kruger effect.
Dunning-Kruger effect. Yeah, but with everything.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just a lot of waffle I'm giving you. But yeah, I guess like honesty is like a big important value that I think.
I guess the point of this is to get people's waffle, you know?
Yeah, true.
So someone else can decide if they make any sense of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, I feel like that's the main thing because I feel like most every other value or like, you know, moral or ethic would somewhat stem from honesty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you see truth as being like, you know, the highest value in it, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I do. I think there is like, in any given situation, a lot of the time, well, in certain regards, but I think there is an objective truth. And you know what I mean? Like, striving towards that objective truth is a thing worth doing because I don't necessarily know about, you know, relative truth and things like that. I mean, in certain ways, I suppose there are, like, you know, in matters of subjectivity and opinion and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. What are your values, Mart?
I think also, yeah, truth is definitely like baseline reality. I would say is my highest value. That's what I really want to know, and it's what I want to operate in.
Yeah.
And maybe a weakness of mine is that I tend to disregard everything that's not baseline reality. Because I
Yeah.
don't know if we can actually make decisions that lead us where we want to go based on anything higher than the baseline. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Unless it's like interpersonal. Like say I have a friend who's having a rough time with their human convoluted nonsense that's up here, not their baseline, but their subjective reality. Sure, if I want to help that person, I'm going to need to enter that realm of their subjective reality. But really, that's just so I can try and bring them back down to baseline reality so we can solve the problem.
yeah.
I don't think the solution ever comes in the mania of people's own fucking internal realities.
Yeah, for me, it really doesn't. For me, it really, really helps to get things as objective and systematic as possible. And like, if I'm very stressed about whatever, it really helps to like nut it out exactly what it is, like make lists, make like, you know, actual actionable plans to get out of this situation, or it's just, you kind of feel a bit powerless and helpless, really.
I think actionable plan is one of those things that's like, everyone's like, yeah, I know what that means, but no one really knows what it looks like. And I think when a lot of advice is given, it's like that's one of the steps that pretty much everyone will give. Like, you got to have an actionable plan.
Yeah,
But
well-
for you, what does that actually fucking mean? And how does it look?
It's like, you know, a non-actionable plan, I suppose, would be like get fit. But like, if you want to get fit, breaking it down into something that's a lot more actionable that you can actually, you know, like, I want to wake up at 7 a.m. every morning and go to the gym for an hour and a half. That's actually an actionable plan. You know what I mean? And if you just say, oh, I want to get fit, and you're not really going to do anything to achieve that, and then you're going to feel like, oh, I've done nothing to get myself closer towards this goal, and I've kind of just floundered around and failed. You know what I mean? But the more you can like break it down, the more and actually put it into steps that are actionable, that you can take those steps and you can actually achieve those goals. You know?
Yeah. The thought I'm having now, you are on track to achieve a high level of success in the fields that you're working in at quite a young age.
I hope you're right.
Are you, do you have any, yeah. I think if anyone was going to, out of the people that I know, you're like definitely in the running to do something like that. Do you think at that point you would then just find another domain to try and excel in and make yourself uncomfortable? Or would you just try and take the small increments and just getting better and better and better and better at that domain? Because you've already gone from, which is obviously under a similar umbrella, but you've gone from music to now videography and have gotten, you know, excelled in your skill set in both of those things at a very quick rate. Do you see that continuing and you just pick up the next thing and the next thing and the next thing? Or do you like really cement down and just continue to grow a single umbrella?
I don't know. Like, I feel like creative pursuits are something that you never really just master and then you're just done with them. You know what I mean? I feel like if you do that you're probably, you're probably leaving a lot of creativity on the table and a lot of like potential on the table. It's like, I think creativity and artistic expressions are pretty like a limitless thing you can tap. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't really feel like I'll get to the point where I'm just like, I feel like I know it and I've done it and I know what I'm doing and that's it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, maybe there'll be other things that I like find interesting and pick up and want to explore more.
Is there anything at the moment that you're kind of that you've seen and looked at? I mean, like that would be something I would think I would really enjoy doing or I really want to do, but it's just like I fucking have so much on my plate at the moment.
Oh yeah, there's always a bunch of stuff. Like yeah, heaps of different things. But I think the main things that I'm really interested in pursuing as much as I can are the things that I have been, you know, and they always have been, which is cool. Like I think videography is only a relatively recent thing that I've gotten into, but I'm still as interested and like excited by production and mixing and music as I always have been. So I don't really see that ever getting exhausted really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What about you?
I don't think I will ever stop, making music specifically. Definitely won't ever stop being creative.
Yeah. I think that's
guess
just a thing that's in you. You know what I mean? Like,
it seems to be a need, not a want. You know, like if I don't do those things, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
It's not a good time, and like mental health goes out the drain. And like, I think even that aside, man, even at times when I'm not doing those things and I'm feeling good and life's going good, I'm like, fuck, I want to do, like, I need to do that thing. And if I push against that, then I just feel unexplainably weird.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You just feel like you're not really yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like a fucking loser if I'm not actually like actively, you know, creating things and like, you know, I do.
Yeah, although that being said, I can certainly play some mental gymnastics to get myself down a path that I wasn't ever meant to be on, which has benefits because I learn a lot of skills on that journey. But certainly for a period of, you know, up to a couple of years, I can trick my little brain into being like, this is what I want now. This is what we're doing. But at the end of that, it always ends in a very big heap of shit.
Yeah.
And then I go back to what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel ya.
Which is like, why the fuck does that happen?
I guess a lot of those things, though, little side quests that you go on, are somewhat feeding back into the greater journey and the greater goal of like, you know, becoming a more well-rounded person, which is going to be beneficial for every aspect of your life, including your art and. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So,
and I think for myself, it was a necessity.
Yeah.
Because of what I came from, I had to go through certain things and learn certain skills that I just couldn't access as a child or didn't get that education. So that was another need for me. And most of the times I go on those journeys, the way I play those gymnastics is like, no, I see a value here. I see a skill that I do not have and I want to learn that skill and then just get a bit lost in the sauce on the way there.
yeah,
you know?
I don't think that's like even a matter of, you know, tricking yourself and like getting, you know, derailed. I think a lot of those things are necessary development and, you know, skill building. And yeah, I think it's all part of it.
I would agree. I wouldn't disagree with the necessity of it and the logic and rationale as to why I get there. I think it's once I arrive at a new environment, that's when the mental gymnastics come in which I like will try and convince myself that I'm no longer really care too much about this other pursuit that's been literally my entire life, and I'll be fine without that, and I can focus entirely on this new thing, but it never really pans out.
Yeah, interesting.
Which to bring this back, the reason I'm making this point is I think for me personally, it highlights the difference between the want or it being a need to be creative. Because there's been a lot of opportunities that would lead to more success, maybe in a financial endeavor, or maybe I would reach a higher level in the hierarchy quicker if I follow those roads. But the harder I try and get down them, the more I'm drawn back to who I think I'm meant to be, you know?
Yeah, that's what I mean, like about having this music problem that really just gets in the way.
Yeah. It's really
you can't really
inconvenient.
just squash it and like, put it aside and get on with your successful life of affluence. You know, you've got this thing that's just the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At all times. And another thing, it makes relationships fucking really hard because there's a certain level of attention that I think is required Even just in establishing a relationship or looking out for one is like you need to kind of be clued onto things that when your brain's in creative mode and you're lost in the source, it's like you don't even see the cues to be aware of certain behaviors or certain things that you should do. Because you're just like, hold on, I'm focused on this life over here. And it's like, this is taking all of my focus. And now I've got to try and focus on something else. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it is quite difficult. It's just like having an all-consuming like soul obsession that like I guess every other element of life kind of takes a bit of a backseat. Yeah. Which is probably why 99% plus of my friends are like other people in the music that I collaborate with and work with and other musicians. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't, I feel like that's such a soul obsession of mine that like that's who I am. That's what I do all the time. That people who don't necessarily, fall in with that end up drifting apart. You know what I mean?
I definitely feel that a lot. I have a lot of humans that I appreciate that I spend fuck all time engaging with simply because they're just doing different things.
Yeah, totally.
And I think there's a good portion of those people that take some offense to the distance because they don't get it, because their focus is on upkeeping all of their relationships, opposed to like being hyper focused on their own journey thing that they're on.
Well, I can imagine if you don't necessarily have like this big passion and obsession in your life, then things have to like fill that void a little bit. And if you just going to work at a job you're just doing for money, then you kind of, I guess, your social relationships would become more of an important thing, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think there's just, obviously people are skewed different ways. Some people are just very people-oriented people.
Yeah.
And they would rather be speaking to people and talking about people and people.
Yeah.
And that gives them value in understanding their position in the hierarchy, I think. Whereas other people are like, no, I must create a product or something along those lines, and then that is the representation of my value in the hierarchy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I think.
I feel like I've definitely either trained myself to be or like have just gradually become a lot more extroverted than I was. Mm-hmm. I feel like when I was a teenager and like a young adult too, and like a kid, I was a lot more introverted than I am now. Yeah, I don't know why that is. If that was like something like I subconsciously thought that I needed to do, so I'd like, train myself to like be more extroverted. Certainly don't think it's necessarily something I've done consciously, but I don't know. It's an interesting one. That just popped into my head.
Yeah, fair.
There you go.
You hold your words back quite a lot. And well, at least it certainly seems that way from the outside. And you, I think, try and make sure what you say is correct. Why do you do that? And how many other opinions do you have that run through your brain before you decide on one to say?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't really feel like I'm consciously biting my tongue or anything. I guess there would be moments where I do, but I feel like on the whole, it's like I was saying with like, knowing what is right is a tricky thing because there's so many variables you need to consider. Like, I think I'm like somewhat good at considering different sides of things and like, seeing value in different perspectives and, well, I don't know, maybe I'm not, but like, you know what I mean? Like instead of like feeling like I'm consciously holding back an opinion, I feel like, well, maybe this opinion that I'm, instantly comes to mind is not necessarily the correct one. And there's like a myriad of factors to consider and variables. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But you seem to have the ability to like on the spot, on the fly, consider a whole bunch of those angles. And you know, I think the reason I said that, you're often the last person to give your opinion on something. And I can see in a conversation when I watch you, your brain is there ticking and you've got thinking face on it. Someone says something and you're like, your face will scroll like, what are you talking about? And you're like, oh, actually, no, maybe. You know, there's all this shit that goes on your face. And then the thing that comes out of your mouth, it seems to be a culmination of all these different things that you've thought of.
Potentially, I'm just, you know, vagging off and you're giving me way too much credit.
I could be. You could be retarded, actually. You're right.
Yes, it's possible. I don't know, man. I think I'm just, yeah.
Well, I guess, in a group setting, a group conversation setting, when people are speaking and someone says a point, when you're vaguing off, are you then running some sort of narrative or conversation in your mind of that revolves around that point, or are you just like fucking off with the fairies?
Well, sometimes the former, sometimes the latter.
Yeah.
Sometimes I am just off with the fairies. I don't know, like, yeah. I think sometimes I just feel like I don't necessarily have all the value to add, and other people have, you know, other people can have more value and more insight that I would just be better off listening to and kind of like taking that on board and considering it rather than just like gobbing off with like a half-baked, ill-informed opinion all the time.
I love doing that.
Yeah, I don't know. It is fun to do that as well sometimes.
Yeah. I think you're right, though. I also get a lot of enjoyment out of just like, if there's a conversation going on and I'm like, oh, these people definitely know more than I do like to take in before I give my half-baked, gobbed-off opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'm like some like big mastermind sitting there like analysing all the things and coming to a super smart opinion.
Conclusion.
Yeah, that I'm just like not sharing with people. I don't know, man. Kind of doing my thing. What about you?
Oh, I usually, if I have a new thought that comes into my mind, I'll spout that bad boy off real quick. And then
Bust it off.
And then
shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah, usually. But then I'm the sort of person that does a lot of retrospective thinking. Like, you know, when I finish a conversation, that's when all of the thoughts come to my mind, and that's when I really process what has been said and like can conceptualize all the ideas myself. And then the next time I engage in that conversation, I'll be like, oh, I actually had this idea, and this is like a new thing that kind of came to me that I couldn't think in the moment because my brain just doesn't. Social anxiety puts a barrier up, and I'm just like, must speak instead of think, because that's what we're meant to do right now. So yeah, I usually think about things retrospectively, which is, I guess, is why I think I'm a little bit slow-witted.
I don't think you're slow-witted.
Yeah, I guess that's how I would define that term.
Right,
You know?
right. Yeah.
In the sense that
You definitely don't come across as slow-witted.
I think that's because I spout my opinions off really quickly.
Probably.
But to come to an understanding opposed to a creative idea, you know, because I feel like those two things are different. To come to an understanding where I'm like, oh, I kind of understand that concept, takes me leaving the scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's an interesting point about feeling that social pressure to engage in the conversation and spout off your opinions, even if you know, they're not quite as developed and considered as you would like them to be. Yeah. Yeah,
it's also, I think it's easy to, like for me during those moments, it's usually because I do have quite a stack of, I guess you could say, preconceived ideas or beliefs that range a whole vast different amount of topics, because my brain just likes to soak up random shit. And then when someone jogs that, I can be like, oh, I have this other thing that I can attach that to, and then I'll develop this opinion by drawing this new idea and this old idea together and assume they just function and they work in that way based on my understanding of the old idea.
Yeah.
And then I think it's when I come out of the scenario, that's when I imagine the new idea more and give that more merit as its own thing, opposed to as an extension of what I already believed.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's interesting. Yeah. Probably a good thing to be doing, really, I suppose. Like, you know,
I guess what is
synthesizing
good?
old and new ideas. Well, probably beneficial for you furthering your understanding of things.
How do you feel about the idea of good and bad? Because I've had a weird relationship with the concept of late.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a very, very deep question.
Oh, it's a fucking pretty deep concept, you know?
Yeah, well, like I think any concept of objective good and bad has to be predicated on some type of axiom, like some type of self-evident statement that's just true because it's true. You know what I mean? It's like, why is anything, bad or good? You know, it all stems back to, an axiom, like something that's like, it just is because it is. You know what I mean? Even if you distill it down to like, good is what is most conducive to human flourishing or human survival or anything like that. But it's like, who's to say that's good? You know what I mean? Like, why is human flourishing good? You know, like, isn't our presence on the planet somewhat detrimental to a bunch of different things? You know what I mean? Like, it's all predicated on some type of core belief that's not objective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that at some point they're tied to some sort of fallacy, I guess.
Not necessarily a fallacy, but like just an element of faith. You know what I mean? Like you just believe that what's good is what's most conducive to human well-being, or what's good is maybe not that. Maybe it's like what's the most conducive for all living things, or like what. But like why? Why is that what you think? It's an interesting one. Very interesting one. If you like I don't know. There's a whole like, I'm not like super educated on this, but there's like a whole branch of philosophy called antinatalism, which is like based on the assumption that to live is not inherently good. And so like by creating life and conceiving children, you're doing them a net harm because, the suffering that they experience is disproportionate to any good that they'll experience. You know what I mean?
It's very nihilistic, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. But also like, to not exist is a complete zero.
Yeah.
It's like there's no suffering at all.
Yeah.
And if it's also kind of like based on the idea that to suffer is, worse than pleasure is good. You know what I mean? Like,
fascinating.
yeah, like there's that whole, yeah. I mean, I'm not.
Do you see any basis in, obviously us coming back to, real and true being important. Do you see any basis for that in reality?
I mean, yeah. I mean, there is like, just like subjectively, suffering does feel worse than pleasure feels good, I suppose. You know what I mean? And like people are a little bit more instinctually adverse, suffering adverse. So they'll avoid suffering even if it means that they have, more opportunity for pleasure. So like if I gave you like a 50-50 coin flip, and if it was, heads, you would experience the most pleasure you ever could. And if it was tails, you'd experience like the most pain that it's ever possible to experience for eternity. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like I feel like most people would be very hesitant to take that risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like obviously I think maybe obviously people wouldn't want to flip that coin.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's just a statistics thing.
Yeah, but like
if you said to someone like, "Oh, I've got this coin, and if I flip it, there's a 70% chance that you feel the best anything could ever feel forever, and a 30% chance that it's going to be the Grimsky town forever."
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would really start at that point to flip that coin.
A lot of people may, but I think there would also be people who wouldn't. And I think, even that says that if it's not a 50-50 split, then clearly suffering has, more of it's more of a stick than the pleasure is a carrot. You know what I mean? So I think that's why these antinatalists say that to exist at all is a net negative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, sure, there's elements of pleasure in it, but there's also, complete nothingness has no suffering. You know what I mean? And
Also no pleasure.
yeah, totally.
And I think also to counter that idea, obviously this isn't a hill you're dying on, but just in the art of conversation, to counter that idea, I think if you told someone that 90% of their life was going to suck a bit, but 10% of it was going to be the most fucking beautiful thing you could ever experience, a lot of people would be like, yeah, I still want to live. Yeah, I want to experience that 10% of beauty. And all of that pain and suffering makes it fucking so worth it.
Yeah, I think
because that kind of is existence.
it kind of is, and it kind of is like the reality if you can really delay gratification and, you know, work as hard as you can in your present for the benefit of your future. But you don't really see a lot of people completely abstaining from alcohol and drugs and like, you know, and working every second of the day. You know what I mean? To contribute to their superannuation so they have a sick retirement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. But in those moments, I think those people they still have a 90-10 and the 10% still makes it worth it. The fucking beer at the end of the day, that's like, this is what I live for. And as fucking, as sad as that might sound, that's still that tiny little fragment of something positive in their lives is enough for them to not kill themselves.
Yeah, true.
And like that is, I think, a testament to how powerful the positive, the nice things in life really are.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not like on board with the anti-natalist.
Yeah.
But what, like, it's just to say that it is like, so like to say what's good and what's bad, it's like an infinite regress that does rely on some kind of like some axiomatic assumption. And like some people don't agree with that. And those people say, you know, to live at all is not good. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
to get back to the question about what is good and what is bad, it's a very deep question.
Super.
Like it's like, it's very hard to answer. And like, I think anyone with like a pretty definitive opinion on it, I think if you questioned it enough and like, you know, traced it back antecedently through all the assumptions that got them there, you could probably, I don't know, you could probably see it falling apart a little bit.
I'm not even sure that it matters beyond the function that it has in making us human. I think beyond that, I'm not sure it actually has any true value in itself. I think maybe a lot of the value of good and bad comes from the fact that if we, you know, position ourselves in thinking that way, we can move away from the baseline animal thing and towards something more than that, you know?
So you mean in like a spiritual or metaphysical sense rather than just like, you know, I don't kill you, that's wrong, because if I kill you, then you might kill me. You know what I mean? Like a fully pragmatic.
Well, I don't think they're really different. I think those two things are kind of the same. And I think they're kind of the same because that same like, oh, you don't kill me, I don't kill you, that serves benefit stems from the very existence of good and bad in the first place, which is the same thing that gets us from like, oh, I don't want this archaic society. I want to move towards this good, more purposeful existence. You know, I don't think they're different. But then beyond that, it's like, what value does it genuinely have? Because good needs bad to have value and bad needs good to have value. So like, it's kind of a cancelled out structure.
Yeah.
That just pushes us to be not just retarded.
Yeah, well,
for lack of a better word.
Yeah. I think that's still, you know, like is based on the assumption that, you know, human like development and flourishing is inherently a good thing, and you want to move away from the caveman stuff into a more enlightened sort of mode of being, which I mean, I don't disagree with. Like, I would much rather live in a society where we all strive for that and like strive for human well-being and people to, people to treat each other more like with more empathy but still, like, if you really probe at that, it's really tricky to justify in a purely objective sense, like down fundamentally. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a weird one.
It is a weird one. I vagued out a bit on that because of the fucking dogs. I'll be honest.
I was just waffling, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the last bit just to get me back on track?
I was just saying that, like what you're saying is fair, but it's still, I think, predicated on
human flourishing being
being the
innately
thing that
good.
we're striving for.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I would also prefer to live in that world where we all, strive for the betterment of society and treat each other with empathy and, like, we aim for human flourishing, but it's a tricky thing to justify purely objectively.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think that human progression has to be based on, and that being what is happening has to be based on good. I just think that function is what makes it happen. Whether or not it's good is kind of beside the point. I just think the concept of good and bad is the catalyst for that happening in the first place.
Right.
And then beyond that, it just is what it is.
So you think that part of why humans have flourished and have continued to survive and thrive and reproduce as we have is because we have some sense of morality and good and bad.
Well, if we didn't, and I wouldn't have kids, why wouldn't I just? And I wanted to have kids, why wouldn't I just rape and pillage? It's like as grim as this is, it's an effective method to get what you want without putting any effort in whatsoever besides physical exertion, right? So then the biggest, the strongest takes whatever they want, they do what they want whenever they want, and that's reality, Or do we move in a better direction than that because of this idea of good and bad? I have a hard time.
Relatively objective reasons for not just raping and pillaging everything. You know what I mean? Like
conservation of energy, I guess.
Well, like as an overall strategy, that's a lot of energy to expend, and then you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position because as soon as you're not, it's like the alpha male in the animal kingdom, like they might have their season of being top shit, but then the next alpha is coming along to kill them and take their position. You know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily the most effective strategy in society for like societal progression as a whole.
I agree.
Yeah.
But
I mean, unless your sole objective is to like spread your particular genes as much as possible, and then you could do like a Genghis Khan or something.
Well, I mean, if you look at other apex animals, most of them do. They do just go hard until the next thing that's bigger than them kills them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's reality. And I think for us to get to a point of being an apex animal, and not doing
I'd say we are an apex animal at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree. And I really think the reason we got there is because of the existence of the concept that is good and bad. Because I also couldn't see us rallying together to build such complex cities if we didn't have a vested interest in being kind to each other and getting along, because then I think the grim
common
side
goal,
of existence,
yeah.
And it's like, why would we have a common goal if we didn't think that was good?
Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's probably like one of the, like I think you're saying, it's like the differentiating element between human beings and the rest of, from what we can see anyway, the animal kingdom.
Yeah, that's from our own internal thing.
Yeah.
But then, then it's so easy to look at some animals and like humanize their behavior and be like, oh, but they're doing the human thing and showing morality and like.
Yeah. It's also a very like, what's the word? Anthropocentric way to look at things, to look at it through our human eyes and be like, well, yeah, we're humans and we know what's going on and we're so much more advanced than these animals, but maybe they think that about us.
It certainly could.
We have made a hell of a mark on this earth, though, for better or worse.
I mean, as far as nests go,
yeah,
pretty hectic, dude.
Yeah, pretty hectic.
Yeah, I haven't seen bees doing none of this fucking shit, man.
Nah,
they don't have podcasts.
Yeah, where's your
losers?
Podcast? Well, they do have a movie though.
That's the worst movie ever made.
They do have a bee movie.
Yeah, it is there. But they just there for us to use their honey, you know?
Yeah.
If they were smart, they would have overthrown us by now.
Yeah, true.
Because they got stingers, man.
They do, but we have guns.
Yeah.
And smoke.
And smoke, yeah.
These are no
pretty
match.
easily brought undone. Yeah. Although we have emotions, all they'd have to do is look cute enough until they just infiltrated us all and then fucking turn on us, you know?
Well, really, like being cute and delicious to humans is like the best thing you can do to propagate your species.
Yeah.
Like how many chickens are there in the world?
Yeah, there's
you know what I mean?
not many cute ones.
Yeah, but they're delicious.
Yeah, they are delicious.
And as far
But how
as,
many
like-
dogs are there?
Yeah.
And they get tried just by being cute. In most countries, anyway. Well, maybe not even most. In this one, for sure.
Yeah.
Although I have seen some blowtorches and some dogs in some horrific videos on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah. Have you never seen them?
No.
There's always when the... and I hope I don't butcher this and be wildly racist, but I think it's like a Chinese festival.
Yeah.
Where they just celebrate eating dogs because that's what they do. But yeah, some of the videos that come out of like just the mutilation of these fucking poor dogs. There's some dogs though wouldn't be opposed.
Chucked in a big pie.
Yeah. After this, we'll get the oven going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting chat, Smart.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder how long this has been going for.
I know.
Mm.
I wonder if we've made any sense and said anything of value here.
I would hazard a guess that we have.
I hope so.
I feel like it's the sort of conversation that someone else could probably get more out of it than we have in the conversation, you know?
I've had a great time though. I've had a lovely chat.
Same.
It was very fun.
It was very good. This dog's not going to stop though, and it's making me a bit cranky. So we'll probably finish up here in a minute.
No worries.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Well, good chat.
Very good chat indeed. Tell me, Pete, what's your future plans for this podcast and who do you want to get on it and what sort of topics do you want to discuss and like what's your angle with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Largely,
I'm doing the interview now.
yeah.
Mark.
The tables have turned. Here's Lachy's podcast now. We've just clicked over. Yeah, largely, I want this podcast to be a collection of people speaking about their inner workings and the way they function, and the reason why they function. I think largely I want people that have been through a lot of struggle, whether that be mental or in life, and have developed strategies on how to then function at a high level in society. You know, and really unpack both draw the very vivid picture of how fucking useless and fucked up they were, and then also draw the very clear path on how they got to being such well-rounded, put together human beings. So the other people that are lost and struggle with life can look at that and be like, oh, okay, all right, this person is saying they used to be a lot of the things that I am right now, so I can now connect to them. And this is what they did to get there. And rather than just, buzzwords, yeah, you've just got to focus on buzzword A and buzzword B, there's an actual detailed path on how they got there.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And then if that could help people find their purpose or their way in life, I'd be fucking thrilled.
Beautiful, bro. I think that's a very noble ambition.
Yeah. And specific people, I don't know. I'll just start with everyone I know first and then I'll go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess to have anyone super cool, you'd need... I don't know, actually. I should think about that. Good question.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, let's go sit on the other couch now.
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.
Beautiful, Mart. How long was that?
5 minutes.
Pretty good.